Alright, we're back and we're gonna look at painting and detailing the aviator. Pilot guy. This fella. So I use, I'm just beginning to use these pens. I like them. They're, you know, so far so good. All I want to do here is just kind of go around some of these painted parts and you know, roundify them. You're not really going to be using a whole lot of masking tape when you're spray painting or brush painting these guys, because I mean, how are you going to mask this? So what I want to do is just kind of make sure the lines are straight. And, you know, especially the black lines, because they're prominent, right? You see that no matter what you're going over or what the underlying color is, if there's, there we go, if there's something, a part that's black on top of it, you know, it needs to look right. And so with the marker, you can see how we can kind of get there pretty good. Now, also, some of the shading can be done with the marker, and what that does, it just brings out and separates the lines and shades the line between, let's say, his arm and jacket and his pants there. And you want that delineation, you know, to be fairly well, you know, fairly bold, right? You want to be able to really see that. Now this tip might be a little bit large for what I'm doing here, so let's shift gears and put this down to a 0.05. Now my phone's blowing up. Second I sit down, what happens? Make sure we got ink on this thing. Here we go. What happens is my phone blows up. That's what happens. So what I probably end up having to do over this is come back with a light brown wash, because I should have switched to this finer tip before I started doing this. Anyway, this is what happens when I start jibber jabbering with my camera on. I get ahead of myself, and well, that tip is, there it is. She's pretty scarce. That's what she is. But that's, you know, that's good. We just want that really fine line. I don't even know if you can make it out there. And we want these ripples and wrinkles. And you don't have to be careful doing that. But you see in the Mae West there, just a couple of quick little zigs and zags, and suddenly there are folds and creases in something that seemed kind of a pancake flat a minute ago. And the standard viewpoint for most models is about 2 feet, and that's really kind of a closer view. Not too many people are going to pick up, you know, your project, your model, and hold it 6 inches from their face to get a good look at everything. About 2 feet. Walk up, stand over, maybe pick the thing up and turn it around at arm's reach. And that's kind of the view, the standard view that most people are going to get of most projects. They're not going to get out their micrometers and whatnot, magnifying glasses and so forth, you know, unless you're in a contest. These aren't contest models that I'm building here. If you're building a contest model, my hat's off to you. because you're dealing with people and attitudes and competition, and what do they call that? What's that other word? Subjectivity, not object, but subjectivity. You know, there's certain baseline requirements and, you know, criteria for judges, but in the end, you know, they're just going to be looking at what they like and so forth. And so that's what I just build to, you know, and not necessarily what someone else might like, but what I like, right? So it eliminates all that other stuff, and you just build to what you like, and what you lose is the headaches. You get rid of those, you know, and the other stuff that goes with those headaches, the frustrations and all that. I don't know if I've said it before on this channel or not, but, you know, life's too short for a whole lot of frustration, and just living can hand you a bunch of that, you know, all unlooked for. You know, you go out into your day and something just happens, and suddenly you're dealing with some challenges and maybe some frustrations. And you can plan and prep and try to deal yourself out of some of that stuff if you're careful or good or practical or whatever other terms you want to use for it when people think ahead, plan accordingly. But, you know, you can't eliminate all of it. And, you know, I stopped looking for extra reasons to have those feelings a while ago, and life has only gotten better. I can tell you that, you know, for sure. So I'm just going to go around, like I said, and just hit every crease and angle I can with this pen. And if it doesn't look like it's enough, I'll come back with a slightly larger pen tip and go over it again until I see what I like, until I see the delineation I'm looking for, see that the ink is, you know, doing what I want it to do, and all that. And if you're afraid of the ink rubbing off, you can spray these with a clear, spray them with a clear sealer, you know, gloss, semi-gloss. I wouldn't use gloss too much. The jacket should have a little shine to it when they're new, but they get dull pretty quick, these aviator style leather jackets, and they wouldn't hold a shine. So I'd say semi-gloss to a matte finish, clear overspray once you have your creases and lines where you want them. And the final step for this will be to run the, before I clear coat it, to run the black panel line, this juice, you know, the one, I use it for literally everything. I want to get a couple of different, they make them in grayish and also in a brown, sort of a filth wash, I guess you'd call it. Dirty water wash. Just something, you know, other than black, for those cases where, you know, black's not really appropriate, more of a dirt appearance than just a black hard line. The black lines are more, to my eyes, shading, shadow. Trying to create those spaces where light is undermined, so that, you know, looking down on a figure with the light shining down on a figure, the hard black line delineates that area where that light just doesn't reach, and so we want to lay it in pretty good underneath any overhanging bit of uniform or body part, and then a little bit less so just in the creases and crevices of a jacket or something like that, or like what we're doing here, right? So just, you know, you fill in the shaded parts best you can, and that tends to not trick the eye, but aid the eye in seeing that difference in light. So, you know, this should be a heavier line here. This arm cutting across the lap, and then here where the oxygen hose cuts across the other side, and some more creases in here in the pants. And you don't have to be neat. You know, I can slip and slosh around with this pen. It's fine, because I can, you know, go over it with the same color, like for the instance on these pants, just do a thin light coat of the khaki color on a brush, and just sort of dry brush over areas that I don't like. Yeah, or we can, you know, come up with another plan. I'm not going to get in here and start wiping things off, because that could affect the paint and smear that around. We don't want that. So there's nothing so critical here. Is what I'm trying to say. You don't have to be perfect. I'm certainly not doing this perfectly. So overall, the effect is what you're after. The overall effect. Let's get in there again and do a crosshair. Right. So now we've sort of brought the clothing a little bit to life. Just a little bit. And again, the wash will help with that. And my idea for the face and goggles was to make a couple of rings of solder here and create the framing of the goggles, and just apply it just over the top of these. It's a pretty fine wire. And then once that's on there, create a small bridge here, as there are in the goggles, using the little piece of solder there. And then we'll paint the interiors of the goggles in a silver chrome to try to replicate the glass look lenses. And that'll be a detail feature for the goggles to bring those out. I still have to paint the surrounds of the goggles. I've got this color, which is good, but I need to have that more around the outside. So we'll just come in and fine brush and get in there and go around the outside first before I lay the solder goggles over the frames, the solder goggle frames over this plastic part here, and get that paint in there. And then we'll do a little touch up around the mask. I can see where I got a little happy with the black paint for the mask down here, so I'll have to get in there with paint. But that's all right. That's okay. I'm pretty happy overall with how this is looking. So the pose of the pilot, where I think I talked about this in one of the earlier earlier recordings when I was talking about making the pilot, fabricating these Guillow pilots. And the pose is good because, you know, with the hand up to the mask, because it was common and it was a required practice for the aviator to check the mask for ice at altitude. So once you get above, you know, 15, 20,000 feet, the inside of the cockpit can go pretty far below 0 degrees, and any moisture in your mask is going to freeze and interfere with the line, the oxygen line. If the liquid starts getting back into here, you could end up having a good reading on the oxygen pump on the system, and yet not getting any oxygen in the mask. And so what's recommended is for the pilot to bring his hand up and squeeze the mask a couple of times, and do that, you know, pretty frequently, not randomly, but hopefully regularly and with frequency. Keep checking that mask for ice. Give it a squeeze, make sure it's pliable, and that anything that's in there gets broken loose quickly. So it's actually an okay representation of a pilot. And if the airplane's sitting on the ground and you're checking your gear, that would be part of that process as well. So I think I read on a forum somewhere, well, you know, that somebody was like grousing about, well, why is he, you know, I don't want that look, I don't want that pilot's hand on the mask. But that's what he would be doing with some regularity, is checking for ice. Now, you wouldn't, again, like I said, you wouldn't be doing that on the ground necessarily, but definitely at altitude. And most of my projects are designed to be hanging from a ceiling, and so I'm okay with it. You know, it's all right here. All right, all right, all right. So there you go. That's a bit of trivia on the mask and the Guillow pilot moldings. Okay, so now we've got some outlining, some delineation on the gear, on the pants, shading on these creases in the pants and pockets and whatnot. And, you know, we're trying to come up with a good representation. You know, these little bumps. And I think this jacket is incorrect. I think this is a bomber's style with the fleece collar. It's probably not accurate. I don't know. For the fighter pilot, I think his standard A2 is or whatever, they 144 jacket, G140, whatever it is. But in the wintertime, and with the way equipment was passed around in the Air Force in World War II, I think it would be likely that fighter pilots could end up with bomber gear, this style of jacket, especially in between November and April. I don't know. That's my story, though, and I'm going to hang with that. I'm going to fight on that. I'll die on that hill. So I think the jacket collar is fine. I'm going to go ahead and mark it up as if it were sheepskin up here, fleece. You can see how that looks. And again, we're talking about, you know, a 2-foot distance for typical observation, and not examining this guy through a microscope. Okay, come under the